Good morning. What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob Soboroff. It is Sunday, June 28th, and you are watching Connect. You know my happy place is an election day, and we are once again just days away from another important primary election here in America. Voters will head to the polls in Colorado to vote in primaries for the governorship and the House and the Senate and other state races. And after the progressive sweep in New York City on Tuesday, one House race just got really, really interesting. In New York, three candidates backed by Democratic Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani won their primaries, knocking out two incumbent Democrats in a powerful show of force against the establishment. And to centrist Democrats, these wins are not just any Democratic wins. They're a warning sign that the playbook that they have been running on might not be what their voters want anymore. Progressives are on a hot streak, and Donald Trump is already running with it. He is doing what he does best. He's putting his own spin on the messaging and slinging around familiar insults.
They're communists, they're not social democrats. They want to completely destroy the traditional American way of life. Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. I'll be honest, I think I'd be the greatest communist in history.
Okay. Well, let me get this straight. Communists are bad and will destroy America, but he would be the greatest communist in history. Cool. Anyway, let me state the obvious. Those progressive candidates won in deep blue New York City, so it is not exactly a full referendum on the midterms in November. And moderate Democrats have been doing well in races far more likely to decide control of Congress. But we cannot ignore that Tuesday's primaries were an undeniable sign that Americans are tired of the status quo. And this is bigger than one city or one mayor. Progressive candidates are hoping to ride this wave in races all across the nation. Take Abdul El Sayed, for example. He is a progressive former public health official endorsed by Bernie Sanders, running for a competitive seat in Michigan to replace retiring Democratic Senator Gary Peters. He told Politico this: "It's happening in New York. It is happening in Michigan. I think we are seeing it happen across the country now. Folks are sick and tired of being sick and tired." Or take a look at what's going on in Wisconsin. Francesca Hong, a candidate running on the Democratic Socialists of America campaign and playbook, is looking to win the governor's seat there. She is gaining traction in the polls and says it is time Wisconsin and Democrats tried something new.
I was at the Democratic convention this past weekend, and I got asked over and over again about, we love your campaign, we love what you stand for, your policies are amazing, it's so thorough, but can you win?
I wouldn't be running if I didn't think we could win.
And this all brings us back to Colorado and the race to watch on Tuesday. Melat Quiros is a 29-year-old Democratic socialist giving incumbent Congresswoman Diana DeGette her biggest primary challenge in nearly 30 years. Quiros is an Ethiopian immigrant, an attorney, a barista, and a PhD student. And Melat Quiros joins me now. She is running in the Democratic primary for Colorado's 1st Congressional District. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jacob.
How are you feeling? What stands between you and victory on Tuesday?
Right now, we're feeling fantastic. We're seeing millions of dollars being poured in by corporate PACs and super PACs and anonymous super PACs with dark money. But we know for a fact that we are going to be able to beat all of those dollars because we have thousands of volunteers knocking on doors all across the city, talking to our neighbors about the values we care about, the policies that we want to see, and the world that we want to live in.
I've been watching the race relatively closely and digging in over the last couple of days, and you are running the strongest challenge to Diana DeGette in 30 years. Why do you think someone with no political experience, at least in the vein that she has, is resonating with people?
I think candidates have a responsibility to meet voters where they're at. And that's what we started with this campaign over 11 months ago. In bookstores and coffee shops and bars and restaurants, meeting voters where they're at, talking about the concerns that they have, not only about our government, but the state of our country right now and how we are actually going to move forward and what kind of policies we need to get that done. And in Denver, we are a city that is extremely progressive, extremely young. We've passed things like universal pre-K, like term limits, like publicly financed elections. Our campaign campaign is the only campaign in this race with every single one of those issues on our platform. We're resonating with the voters because we're fighting for the things that they care about.
The acrimony in this election has sort of turned up, and progressive leaders in your state are criticizing you, declining to call the deadly firebombing attack last year on a Jewish community rally in Boulder anti-Semitic, and you've also been criticized over your comments tied to October 7th. Views over Israel seem like a common line of attack between Democratic Socialists and mainstream Democrats in all of these primary elections. But what's your response to members of your own party, especially the progressive Democrats in your state who are criticizing you?
You know, I think what happened in the Boulder firebombing was a horrific attack on a group of Jewish people that were peacefully protesting. It has made many Jewish people in our city, in our states, and in our entire country feeling extremely unsafe. And that's why I think it's incredibly important that we distinguish between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, because our responsibility is to protecting our neighbors, protecting our Jewish brothers and sisters in this city. That is my commitment to combating any hate that comes their way, while also making sure that we are not using our taxpayer dollars to fund endless wars and genocide abroad, protecting babies here and protecting babies abroad.
I wonder how you would characterize Diana DeGette's campaign against you, because 48 hours before you and live streamer Hassan Piker were supposed to hold an event at the Ogden Theater, I think it was. The venue canceled the event. This was a couple of weeks ago due to pressure and concern from the local community, reports said. And the rally was moved to the Capitol steps. I saw this crowd. It was enormous. Tell me that story. What was behind that whole situation?
You know, we had several venues cancel on us the week leading up to the rally that we were going to be having, not only with Hassan Piker, but with several other candidates, including Justin Pearson and Donovan McKinney, my fellow Justice Democrats, where we were going to be talking about what we were going to need to do to not only change our party, but to fight for a kind of politics that really meaningfully helps working families and uplifts them. We saw several of those venues cancel on us at the very last minute. And, you know, while they can cancel and take us out of the buildings that we were holding in these rallies, they can't stop us from building this movement. So we took it to the People's House, we took it to the Capitol steps, and we gathered hundreds, almost over 1,000 Denver voters that wanted to hear our message and stood strong with us.
Denver is not New York, but I wonder if you have taken any lessons from watching Zohran Mamdani's slate of progressive Democrats win on last Tuesday.
Denver's not New York, but Denver actually rates socialism higher than we rate capitalism by 4 points. And, you know, when I talk to voters about what we're doing and why I'm a democratic socialist, I remind them that we have socialism already, right? It's in the roads that we drive on. It's in the schools we send our kids to. It's in the fire stations we call upon. I'm just asking that we extend that security to our healthcare, to our housing, to our nutritional food, to our higher education, so that we're actually meeting the basic needs of everyday working families in this country. So that we're not just getting by and surviving, so that we're actually thriving. And in the wealthiest, most powerful country on earth, we're not asking for much.
You mentioned health care, and one of your top policies is Medicare for All, but Diana DeGette is a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All Act in Congress. Are there any dividing lines between the two of you on Medicare for All?
Yeah, the dividing line is how we actually get it done. There is no world where we pass Medicare for all while there is still a majority of members of Congress that are taking money from the very health insurance companies that would effectively be legislated out of existence. It's the same reason why the National Nurses United's policy director also expressed concern for members of Congress that are co-sponsoring this bill while also taking money from big health insurance companies. And we have to pass Medicare for all. We have to get that done in the next Democratic administration. That's how we MAGA-proof our future. That's how we guarantee that whatever sycophant fills Donald Trump's shoes in 2032 and tries to lay blame on all of our vulnerable communities for why the system is rigged, we can point to a piece of legislation that we passed that meaningfully helped working families. And the only way we get Medicare for all passed is by getting rid of the Democrats that are actively standing in that way, by taking money from the same interests that don't want to see Medicare for all passed.
You have made your personal story as an immigrant to this country a part of your campaign, and you have talked about how your father spoke to you about Democrats as a child, which is why you wanted to be a Democrat, and sort of part of your origin story is why you decided to run in this race. Talk to me about why your personal life story makes you suited to be the congressperson in Colorado at this moment.
Yeah, I immigrated to Denver in 98 when I was a baby and watched my parents navigate this brand new country, navigate the immigration process. And once they became naturalized and chose the party that they wanted to belong to, I asked him why he chose the party of Democrats. And he said, because this is the party that fights for working people. This is the party that got fair labor laws, the New Deal, Social Security. This is the party that fights for working people. But it didn't just happen overnight. People had to push the party to fight for these kinds of policies. That was organizers, that was dreamers, that were people pushing leadership in our party to fight for working families. That's what we just saw in New York City, the voters pushing the party to elect leaders that are going to stand up to the special interests and the billionaires and the corporations that are responsible for burning our planet and keeping our prices high. I think that's what we're going to see here in Denver on Tuesday, and I think we're seeing it happening all across the country.
Moderate Democrats are worried that this shift to the left or policies put forward by Democratic Socialists will hurt Democrats' long-term electoral chances. And we've heard it over and over again, yet Democratic Socialists continue to win. What do you say to that criticism from the establishment part of the party?
I'd point out that they've shown no evidence for why any of these policies would hurt the party in the long term. In fact, there is a mountain of evidence that shows that policies like Medicare for All, Housing First, and universal child care would be immensely helpful to working families and therefore helpful to the party. At the end of the day, it is cheaper to house someone than to leave them homeless. It is cheaper to heal someone than it is to let them go sick. It is cheaper to give young families child care than it is to let them figure it out for themselves or force one of them to stay out of the workforce. These are all common sense policies that have the support of a super majority of the voters of this party. I would recommend that the moderate voters that are afraid of what they're seeing right now actually just talk to their voters and see that this is what the party is actually building towards.
Meillat Qaros, Democratic candidate for Colorado's 1st Congressional District. Really nice to talk to you. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you, Jacob.